Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin. Sometimes it may be very difficult to grasp this idea that our understanding of the Quran and the Quranic truths is evolving. It's difficult to accept for many. Many people have given different theories. I'm not saying it's all correct, but it deserves or merits some thought. Many of the Ulamaa today, when they analyze Shia doctrine from the earliest centuries onwards, they're trying to pinpoint why did the scholars of a given century suddenly make a shift in relation to a particular article of faith. For example, something which today is taken for granted is the immateriality of the soul. This is something which today, and alhamdulillah, we had that 8 or 9 lessons on Ma'rifatul Nafs, and we spoke about it, although there were many things we haven't said yet there. Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh goes almost maybe more than 20 different proofs in relation to the immateriality of the soul. Some of them become geometrically very difficult to digest at times. I remember one of them, I think it's in lesson 70 something, we didn't get to this part. But he said, imagine a physical line is drawn here, a physical line. And I have a ruler in my hand. I can move this physical ruler until it becomes parallel with that physical line. There's no problem there. But it says, if I draw or conceive of a physical line in my mind, however and whatever and however much I want, I will never make. It's not possible. It's impossible to make that line which I've conceived in my mind to become parallel with the physical line. Look at it. I gave this example because of the details that one goes into to prove the immateriality of the soul. So however that line in your mind, however when you move, it'll never become parallel to a physical line. The point was the earliest scholars in between the 3rd and 5th century, even the likes of Sheikh Mufid, they didn't accept the immateriality of the soul. And even those of later centuries, very well-known figures, they haven't accepted it. Although more and more people did accept it over time, but even today, even in Qom, there are a group of theologians who don't accept the immateriality of the soul. They say it's physical, but it's latif. Not like this physical, another kind of physical. If one knows what physicality means, they would never say such a thing. And they say nothing is immaterial except Allah. And then you say to them, what are the mental concepts, your dreams? No, it's physical, but it's latif. They're becoming less and less, but they exist, and they're very well-respected people, well-respected scholars. And so from Sheikh Mufid, we have this. Now, some of those who have specialized in history amongst the Ulamaa, they said, look, there were certain times where we saw a sudden shift. One of them was when Ibn Sina, his philosophy became prevalent. Now, he was 1,000 years ago, Ibn Sina. He said after that, 1 or 2 centuries after that, when Ibn Sina's teachings spread, then they interpreted certain verse of the Quran or chapter or ahadith in a way which was on a par with the immateriality of the soul, because he proved it. Ibn Sina proved it. Remember Imam Khomeini's letter where he gave the name of the scholar, the philosopher or arif, and said why you have to study these things. And verses like وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءً. Don't think that those who have been killed in the way of Allah are dead. No, they are alive. Suddenly another interpretation came. It means, we're not only the physical dimension then. I can be dead and I can be alive at the same time. And then the first interpretation in relation to this verse, people believed in, so I'm in Barzakh. But in Barzakh, it's a semi-immaterial, because you have bodies in Barzakh, you have color, size, shape, but there's no matter. So they said, okay, so we have a Barzakhi reality and we have a physical reality. The physical reality is dead, the Barzakhi reality continues. But after Ibn Sina's philosophy became prevalent, you saw a gradual shift that no, we even have an immaterial dimension. This is beyond a semi-immaterial barzakhi. We now have an immaterial dimension. So now suddenly we have, this man has now become multi-dimensional, became bi-dimensional, now triple or tri-dimensional, and then they became more understanding in relation to the ahadith. Then the ahadith were the Imam say, Nahnu asma'ullah. We are the attributes of Allah. What does that mean? Which dimension is that? So, yes, we see this shift. Now, in relation to ilmul ghayb, and we spoke about knowledge actually, to some degree, and it's the immaterial reality of knowledge. Remember in Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh's book, these things we did touch upon. But here, there were three groups on how they would understand ilmul ghayb. There were some who believed that there is no ilmul ghayb in relation to the Prophet and Imams. Starting from the disciples of the Imams themselves. Although they withered away gradually. But there were two other groups, and Ulamaa Abraar we spoke about in the last two sessions. But in relation to ilmul ghayb, there are two other groups. One of those groups, in this era, we call them extremists. And I don't mean extremists in any negative connotation. Extreme as in the extreme side of the spectrum. Right now it seems to be like that. In 100 years' time, I don't know. There's no guarantees, Where they say the knowledge of the Imams, the knowledge they have, be it in the physical or in metaphysical, ghayb. Ghayb means in the metaphysical dimensions, broadly speaking. If I hide something behind the wall, if I hide a physical thing behind the wall, we don't call that ghayb. Ghayb itself, by definition, is something which is beyond the physical realm. Yes. So things like resurrection, barzakh, these realities like that. Anything pertaining to the soul, these are ghaybi realities pertaining to the ghaybi, metaphysical dimension. And the metaphysical dimension, there are many. The degrees of immateriality isn't one or two, it's a lot. Those pertaining to the extremist position say that the Imams have absolute knowledge of everything, but they say not potentially, but in actual terms. Remember the difference between potentiality and actuality. For those who remember, when something is actual, it's instantaneous. Whereas the potential movement was gradual. When it becomes actual, that actuality, it becomes instantaneous. So when you say everything in actuality, the Imam knew everything in actual terms. Not that he didn't know and then he got to know. And this is a very big thing to say, hence the term extreme. And here, there's a moderate position too. The moderate position, and I'll explain the verses that they use and how they debate with one another, but the moderate position, they say, look, the Imam has a physical, limited dimension. The Imam also has a number of metaphysical dimensions. Depending on the status quo of the Imam, I'll tell you what he knows or doesn't know. That I'll open up tonight, inshallah. But first, let's sort out the extreme position and try to refute it. And then we get to that which is now common amongst the Urafa and is the prevalent position today in relation to Ilmul Ghaib. That's the moderate position. So, here, this is the extremist position. The Imam has limitless Ilmul Ghaib with respect to everything. So nothing in actual terms is concealed from him, any dimension of him. And because of this limitless nature, they say so his knowledge can't increase. Because when your knowledge increases, you can't attribute the term limitless to someone. When you're limitless, you don't increase in your knowledge. And we believe that in relation to Allah. They say the same with the Imam. They have limitless knowledge, so their knowledge cannot increase or change. Why? Because it's infinite. How can infinity increase? And infinite absolute knowledge can't increase. Okay, that's the extremist position. Now, this, we can refute this by verses of the Holy Quran. And this is chapter 11, verse 49. تِلْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهَا إِلَيْكَ. This is news of the unseen, which we reveal to you, the Holy Messenger. So, no one is saying that the Prophet doesn't have Ilmul Ghaib. The fact that the Prophet has Ilmul Ghaib is a definite. Whoever denies that, it's very difficult. Now, you could understand why, in relation to the Imams, some people found it difficult at the beginning, after the demise of the Holy Messenger, because they said only the Prophet can have that. But there are a very select few who, even in relation to the Prophet, they put some doubt, but they're almost non-existent. So the Prophet, as a human being of a high caliber, he does receive Ilmul Ghaib. مَا كُنْتَ تَعْلَمُهَا أَنْتَ وَلَا قَوْمُكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ هَذَا. So we reveal it to you, Ilmul Ghaib. You didn't know about it. The Holy Messenger, he didn't know about it. Neither you nor your people. We told you and then you got to know. Yes, it's Ilmul Ghaib we gave you, but you didn't know. So this very idea of not knowing and then knowing, they say, look, so this extreme position of absolutely knowing everything in actual terms, this goes against this. Or for example, another verse, وَمِمَّنْ حَوْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَعْرَابِ مُنَافِقُونَ وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ. That amongst you there were those Bedouins and people from Medina who were hypocrites. maradu ala nifaq, and they were accustomed to hypocrisy. Again, the operative clause, la ta'lamuhum, you don't know them. Nahnu, we, na'lamuhu, we know them. And if we tell you, then you get to know, but you didn't know. You see, here, what are we trying to refute here? The idea that moment to moment, the Imam or the Prophet, well, here is the Prophet moment to moment knew, had knowledge, infinite, limitlessly. This goes against these verses of the Quran. That should be evident now. Or for example, in chapter 6, verse 50, قُلْ, say to the Holy Messenger, for you to say, لَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ إِنْدِي خَزَائِنُ اللَّهِ وَلَا أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ وَلَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ إِنِّي مَلَكٌ إِنْ أَتَّبِعُ إِلَّا مَا يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. So I don't tell you, O people, the Prophet saying, that the depositories of Allah are not before me. The depository of Allah's knowledge, power, sustenance, these attributes of Allah is not before me. And I know, or that I know the unseen. Nor do I tell you that I'm an angel. I only follow what is revealed to me. That which is revealed to me, yes, it is the unseen, but it's through dependence upon Allah, not me myself. Here again, two things are visible, that they don't have that absolute knowledge in actual terms, and that which they're given, it's through dependency of Allah. It's all revealed to them. So this goes against the extremist position again. So the Prophet's knowledge is not absolute, knowing all things at all times. And the extremists, they said that their knowledge is absolute, but some of them say it's dependent upon Allah, whose knowledge is absolute and independent. So some say that, look, the Imams too have absolute knowledge. The difference is, with Allah, Allah's absolute knowledge, knowing everything at all times, is independent, whereas their absolute knowledge is dependent upon Allah. But the verses don't show that. It's saying you don't know right now, then you got to know. You see what I mean here? It's very difficult to hold on to this extremist theory. So in reply it said that irrespective of the independent or the dependent nature of ilm, of knowledge, the verses illustrate that the Prophet's knowledge is not actually in opposition to potentially. It's not actually absolute. Okay, and finally this is used against them. Chapter 7, verse 188. قُلْ, say, لا أملك لنفسي نفعا ولا ضرا إلا ما شاء الله. That, say, O Prophet, that I hold not for myself the power of benefit or harm except what Allah has willed. So this except what Allah has willed shows that that agency is through Allah, it's not independent. But even then, when it's dependent on Allah, it continues, وَلَوْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ. And if I knew the unseen, if I knew it, لَاسْتَكْثَرْتُ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ وَمَا مَسَّنِيَ السُّوءُ. Then I would have acquired much wealth. No harm would have affected me. But we have stories of the Holy Prophet where his camel was lost. Where's my camel? Where is it? Look, he says, I don't know anything except through Allah. If I knew the unseen, harm wouldn't have come my way. I would have acquired a lot of wealth. So then the stories where he's lost something, the Holy Prophet has, or he's been injured. You see? This shows that the limited nature here. So we understand that the extremist position doesn't hold. However, this extremist position, so have that story of the camel and everything, and that verse in your mind. We'll come to it later. So why did the extremists, where did they get their energy from, so to speak, to say what they say? You say, well, this is also from the Quran. All these, we also have ahadith too, even more so. But I'm just bringing the Quranic verses for now. If they say, so where did you get your position? They say, look, we have verses like chapter 36, verse 12. وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْسَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. And we record that which you've done before, that which you've left behind, that which you bring forward now. And all things, all your actions, it's all enumerated in a clear Imam. The Imam is mentioned here. It didn't say clear book. So here, Imam, there's a meaning here. Now, there's a dimension of the Imam which has the ruling of the actions being written in a book too. But it's the Imam here. And the Imam is connected to that realm of, let's say, Lawh Mahfuz, or the preserved tablet, or whatever name that all the actions are written. The Imam is connected to it. And the ahadith here say this is Imam Ali, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And it applies to all the Imams too. So when the extremists use this, and it's a good point they mention. Another thing they use is قُلْ كَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكُمْ وَمَنْ إِنْدَهُ إِلْمُ الْكِتَابِ. Say, O Prophet, sufficient is Allah as a witness between me and you, and the witness of whoever has knowledge of the book. The verse below is in relation to Asif ibn Barkhia, who brought the throne of the queen from one place to another within a twinkling of an eye. In relation to him, in chapter 27, verse 40, it says, one who had knowledge from the book. Min al-kitab, min denotes partiality. So some knowledge of the book Asif ibn Barkhia had. Look what he did. But this who is witness between Allah and the Holy Messenger, here it says, and whoever has man indahu, one who before whom is ilmul kitab, the whole of the knowledge of the book, not some, not min al kitab. So who is this person? All the tafsirs from the beginning of the early centuries, they say it's Amirul Mu'mineen. Okay, it's the Sunni ahadith which later come and say it applies to all the Imams. But the fact that this is Amirul Mu'mineen, everyone has, even our Sunni believers. So here the extremists may use this and say, look, there's absolute knowledge. So these are the verses they used to make that conclusion. But then we had those other verses which said, no, the Prophet didn't know something in absolute, actual terms. Then he got to know about it. We told him whatever he knew was MashaAllah, was illa yuha ilay. So these are two, it seems to be incompatible, these two sets of verses of the Quran. It seems to be. And in the ahadith, if I wanted to go through both sets of the, where the limited nature of knowledge shown and illustrated in the ahadith in relation to the Imams, and an absolute sense, a limitless sense of knowledge attributed to the Imams, in the ahadith there are plenty, much more. But they all have their roots in the Quran though. So what happens when you have these two different sets of verses? The extremists, they made a conclusion. It was an easy way out. They said, look, the Imams had the absolute knowledge, like Amirul Mu'mineens and the rest, but they practiced taqiyyah, and they pretended they didn't know. That's how they say it. This, Allama Tabatabai, I said, if we take this and want to use this as a principle in tafsir, how are we ever going to differentiate, the truth from not the batil? It's going to be very difficult. That everything they did was out of taqiyya. They knew, but they said, the people cannot tolerate us, so let's pretend to be ignorant. The problem they have with this, they have to prove that here, this taqiyya is something so practiced with such prevalence. All those verses, all those stories of the prophets, stories of the imams, where they didn't know something, they were told, a bit revelation-wise or ilmul ghaib, outside revelation, to say no, they just pretended. So that's how they made the two sets compatible with one another. Then enter the moderate position, which is prevalent today, where we say, look, you haven't understood how these two sets of verses and ahadith can be made compatible. It requires a number of preliminary points. We have to first understand the preliminary points. After understanding that, then we can understand how these two sets can be made compatible. And the imam, at the same time that he has access to all knowledge, at the same time it's possible that he doesn't know something. That's the claim. This is the moderate position now. So they're not saying the imam has absolute knowledge at all times in actual terms. Yes, they didn't know certain things, but at the same time they didn't know certain things, they had access to all knowledge. How is that going to be made compatible with one another? The scholars say, look, you have to learn a few things. We have to teach you a few preliminary points. The first is, do you know that the realms of existence isn't just one or two? There are many realms and dimensions of existence. We have a material realm. We have a semi-immaterial realm, like what we see in our dreams, for example. We have immaterial realm. Well, it's not even semi-immaterial, it's all immaterial. There's no color, size, shape. We have even realms beyond the immaterial realm. For example, angels are commonly known to be part of the immaterial realm, unless they appear in an apparition, where like in Lady Maryam alayhi salam, where she said, when she saw Jibreel as a well-proportioned human being, that was an apparition of a semi-immaterial. It wasn't a physical entity, what she saw. It was like what we see in our dreams. It has color, size, shape, and a body, but there's nothing physical about it. Like when we see a man in our dreams, for example, or when we eat in our dreams, or sleep, or speak with someone, or angels are immaterial, but they can appear before people in semi-immaterial types. But the origins of angels are immaterial. And even beyond immateriality, we have realms. So first we have to understand that the realm of existence has different realms of existences. The different dimensions exist. That's the first point. Now, I have a diagram here, and although this, I don't want to go too much, this was part of a course which I gave, so I just to explain that, here, this is the physical realm which we're in. The relation, there are many other realms at the same time, but they're immaterial, we don't see it. You can even say it's right here, but it's the batin of this physical realm. And the first batin of this physical realm, they call it the mithali realm, or the semi-immaterial realm, and they call it the malakut too. Different names, philosophical names, or irfani jargon. And whatever happens in this physical realm, before happening its cause is in the Malakuti realm. They call it the descending arch of existence. So things which happen here, it happened, Allah knew about it, in Allah, pure existence, or in His knowledge, which is this level. Look, everything above here are immutable. They're never created. It's nothing to do with creation. They were since pre-eternity. Here, in Allah's knowledge, He knew everything which was going to happen. But that's in beyond immaterial realm, Allah's knowledge. That Allah's knowledge wants to now manifest, descend. It descends first in immaterial terms, then semi-immaterial terms, and then material terms. So everything which is happening here existed pre-eternally in Allah's knowledge. And from that realm to this realm, you undergo manifestation after manifestation. So when things happen here, everything which happens here, it happened here in one realm, in this realm, it was in Allah's knowledge. Now, if you've understood nothing what I've said, let me just give you an analogy. Imagine an architect. An architect has the knowledge, the abstract knowledge of architecture. Okay, it's abstract. He's learnt it. He has it. And then with that abstract knowledge, he conceives of mental pictures of a house in his mind. So from that immaterial abstract knowledge, it descended, manifested one level down to what? Lines, but the mental picture of the house, how it's going to be. Then it came on a piece of paper, and then it was built. You see, different layers. But naturally with the architect, that knowledge of his isn't encompassing, for example, the physical house that he built. That was just an analogy to show you the descending manifestation from one realm to the lower realm, and here, whatever we have. So this Malakuti realm, or the semi-immaterial realm, in the descending arch of, or arc of existence, has the role of a cause in relation to this realm. This is an effect of that cause. And the immaterial realm is a cause of the Malakuti realm. And so on and so forth. So everything which is happening here, Allah knew since pre-eternity. And just in case someone will say, what about free will? There's always that waswas. Some people have this waswas on free will. Say, what our free will? No, don't worry. Allah knew since pre-eternity that you with your free will do this or that. And that which Allah knew since pre-eternity is going to happen. This we call the justice of Allah. That which Allah knew from pre-eternity, for it to be materialized in this realm through these dimensions, the actual actualization of all this is on a par with the justice of Allah. Allah is just. What He knew, it's all going to happen. If it doesn't, it would go against, it would be a deficiency attributed to Allah. So, this is the first thing we have to understand. It's ontology. We have to understand the realms of existence. We're not only us in this physical realm, and there's nothing outside there. The second premise or preliminary thing we have to learn is that man is also multidimensional. And this is where Ibn Sina's philosophy, Suhrawardi's, Ibn Arabi, Mullah Sadra, over the centuries, these milestones came, and then you saw the scholars shift. They didn't believe in immateriality of the soul, now they believe in the immateriality of the soul. They didn't believe in this, now they do. That man is multidimensional. These realms of existence, man can gain access to all of them. The fact that me and you only have access to the material realm and the barzakhi realm in our sleep, for example, what we see. Do you have access to your immaterial realm? Have you ever had access to your immaterial realm? Usually not. And animals don't. And if we are on a par with animals, we don't have access to our immaterial dimension. Have you seen an angel, for example? Have you been inspired by an angel? The Quran says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. Those who say, our Lord is Allah. And ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, and they act. So they have Tawheed, Aqa'id, and they act upon that Tawheed. Angels descend upon them. So with action and Aqa'id, you can gain access even to your immaterial dimension. Angels can appear before you. Sometimes you may see an angel appearing before you in the form of a scholar. You may have a dream of, let's say, Ayatollah Bahjat. He woke you up for Salatul Fajr. That's an angel who woke you up. But you weren't ready to see the angel. The heart can't see the immaterial angel. Your readiness wasn't there. But you saw that immaterial angel manifest in the form of Ayatollah Bahjat, who woke you up for Salatul Fajr, for example. Most of us have seen that. But it's the semi-immaterial realm though. So here, man can also gain access to the immaterial realm. Now the immaterial realm, there are no limits there now. It's purely immaterial. It doesn't know of time, space. You have access to many things. They say the preserved tablet, Lawh Mahfuz, is pertaining to this realm. Where something written, if you gain access to it, in this realm, since it's unchangeable, you know something is going to happen, no matter what. Like with Imam Hussein and Karbala, he had access, for example, to what was to be, and it was unchangeable, but he did his duty. That doesn't distance one to execute one's duty. But he knew this was going to happen. Amirul Mu'mineen knew that tonight I'm going to be struck. This can't be changed. Sometimes you gain access to knowledge, or in the semi-immaterial realm, that can be changeable. But in the immaterial realm, it can't be changed. Lawh Mahfuz that we see in the Quran is pertaining to the immaterial realm. The concept of Bada, and in the Quran it mentions the tablets of effacement and affirmation, Mah and Isbat, that's to do with the semi-immaterial realm. If you're connected to the semi-immaterial realm, and the knowledge you get from the semi-immaterial realm is X person is going to die, and the Prophet say, you're going to die in 3 days' time. 3 days passed, the person didn't die. They came to the Prophet, oh, you said he's going to die. He said, well, I had access to the Malakuti realm. I didn't go to the immaterial realm. That I didn't have permission. I was given this knowledge. Something changed. What did you do? Did you give sadaqah? He said, yes, actually I did. Oh, it prolonged it. But if one had access to the immaterial dimension and saw someone's death written there, that is unchangeable. But the Imam, are they constantly in all dimensions? Have this in your mind for now. Are they present in all dimensions? And then above the immateriality, what are the realm of Allah's attributes, Allah's knowledge, Allah's power, Allah's sustenance? You can be in contact with that. This is Allah's knowledge now. Like how I was comparing it with the abstract knowledge of the architect. So this is Allah's knowledge per se. If you're connected to that realm, of course, if you're connected there and you know of something, you're told something, it can't change. However, the double dotted line, anything above that, if you're connected to, you're in a state of annihilation. When you're in a state of annihilation, it means you see nothing but Allah. Okay? If they want to tell you something from Lawh Mahfuz, which is pertaining to the immaterial realm, you would have to come out of that state. to be given knowledge. Now, you may not want to come out of that state. Who decides that? That the Imam comes out of that state or not? If you're in a state of annihilation, if they were to stab you, you won't be attentive. You're drowned in Tawheed. Even if they were to stab you, you wouldn't be attentive to it. You would have to change your attentiveness to a lower realm for you to become attentive to. So these are different realms that man can attain to also. Another premise is, so with those two, now let's look at the Imam or the Prophet. What are their levels? Where did they attain to? And they were in unity. Now from here it gets a bit delicate. It's very easy, but I'll give one or two analogies to make it easier to digest. But let's get the theory right. The perfect human being, the Holy Messenger, the Imams, they have access to all except, Allah, the essence of Allah, that pure existence. No one has access to that. No one knows. You can't even give a name for it. You can't even describe it. Yes, you can't even try to see what is the stuff, that pure existence, the essence of pure existence is made. No, we can't. We don't know. But all the other realms they're in connect with. So when they say Nahnu Asma'ullah, we're connected with Allah's names. One of the names, Allah's knowledge. And all the other realms they're connected to, because why? It's man. Right now, I have a physical dimension. Right now, I have a semi-immaterial dimension, an immaterial dimension, and even beyond. Right now, all of these exist. Okay? With me and you, it's only two dimensions that we're attentive of. We are veiled from others, but we have access to them. Now, pay attention to these two analogies. Sometimes someone is hungry. Hunger. This experience of hunger is a state which is present within the individual, and they're tasting it. They know what hunger is. It's not a mental concept of hunger. It's hunger. It's present before them. Okay? It's not something physical. The state of hunger is experienced within the person, within the I, within me. And I say, I'm hungry. For example, in the month of Ramadan, for example. You get hungry. Now in the month of Ramadan, let's say you are now watching television, or you are studying, or you're preoccupied with an intellectual activity of some sort. Okay? And then you get preoccupied with it. It may be mathematics, it may be this, whatever. Is the hunger still in you or not? What do you think? Someone said yes there. Was a child. Did I hear correctly? A child said yes. Yes. This is all fitri. Even a child understands. Look. So you're hungry right now. It's not a trick question. It's very easy. Just go back to your own common sense. You're hungry right now. And then you go to work, you intellectually preoccupy yourself with something. Now, be it television or work or whatever. Then you forget, or you become oblivious to ghafla. You become oblivious to your hunger because you're preoccupied with another higher reality of your soul, intellect, for example. But the question is the hunger still there or not? Yes, it is. It is. But you are oblivious to the hunger. Because you're now preoccupied with a higher realm. Not that the hunger you don't have attention. If in that higher realm, when you're watching television or studying or working, if someone was to say to you, Faroukh, are you hungry? I would say, wait a minute, let me just come out of what I'm doing. Yes, actually I am. Because I was oblivious to the hunger. Because I was drowned in a work. I had to then re-divert my attentiveness to the question. If that person wouldn't ask me the question, are you hungry? For hours and hours, I would have been oblivious to that hunger. But the hunger was something present before me. I was always in unity with the hunger. And now I'm in unity with an intellectual activity. I'm in unity with two different states. But when I'm preoccupied with a higher state, I become oblivious to this. But if, for whatever reason, I now want to know if I'm hungry or not, no problem. Let me just divert my senses to this dimension. You see? And this is what happens with the Imams. One other analogy, let me go. I may have given this in Zanzibar, I'm not sure. Sometimes someone has leg pain and they're in hospital. And at night, they're alone and the leg pain is hurting them a lot. They're very attentive to the leg pain. And they're alone, there's no one there. But during the day, when the nurses come, family, friends during the day come, and the activity during the day, the hustle and bustle of the hospital and everything, I forget my pain. I'm not attentive to it. Okay? And when the doctor comes and says, are you in pain? I have to think a bit. I was so preoccupied with other things. For example, my family members, my friends are here. I forgot about the pain. So I have to just re-divert and then say, wait, yes, actually I have a pain here right now. I'm actually tasting the pain right now. But I was preoccupied with the family and friends. When night approaches again and all the preoccupations go, my attentiveness is to the pain again. During the day, the pain was there. I was oblivious to the pain. Not that the pain wasn't there. And to get rid of the obliviousness, I would just have to re-divert my attentiveness. Now, in one lecture, this was the best I can do to explain this important concept. The moderate position says, look, brothers, extremists, not in a negative way, but look, you didn't understand these two sets of verses of the Quran. Some verse of the Quran says that all the ilm al-kitab is you're connected with Allah's knowledge. Okay? Some verses say that the Prophet didn't know, the Imam didn't know. Instead of saying they did taqiyyah all the time, all their lives, we could have made this compatible in a very easy way. That when the Imam is preoccupied in the physical realm, and he would say that every time I'm in a majlis, I say istighfar 70 times. The Holy Messenger said this. I would say istighfar 70 times every time I'm in a majlis with people. Because it's that being distanced from Allah, it hurts them. Because now they have to do the work of the people and do what they want. When they're preoccupied in this realm with these kind of things, they are connected with ilmul kitab. It's a dimension of their soul. They're maximum manifestations of Allah's attributes. They're connected with all these realms, but they're oblivious to it. And they won't go towards it unless Allah orders them. Illa ma sha Allah. Because they don't have egos to say, oh, I want to know knowledge of this person, see whether they are heavenly or non-heavenly. Let me go and find out in Lawh Mahfuz. That's an ego thing. They don't think like me and you. Their self-will is annihilated in Allah's will. Allah is Mukhtar. We have traditions that they only know when Allah wants them to know, not out of their own doing. So when their duty is to do something in the physical realm, they are occupied in this realm. They have access, they're in unity with Lawh Mahfuz and beyond the Lawh Mahfuz. But they haven't diverted their attentiveness to those realms unless Allah orders them. So the Prophet says, I've lost my camel, where's my camel? Who's taken my camel, for example? Yes. Because he was living with Numan, Ana basharun mislukum, I'm a person like you. Then they were mocking him. Oh, he can't find his own camel, and now the angels are coming. He says he knows this or that. Here, religion was under attack, was being mocked. The instruction came from Allah. He said, go and find it. It's in this address, this square meters area. He gave the exact address just to put people in their place. See, when he wanted to know, he would get to know. But when Allah would give him permission. The other way around, sometimes they are annihilated in Allah. Even if you were to stab them, they would not know. If you were to strike them with a sword, if they're in a state of annihilation, they would not know that they've been stabbed. They would have to come out of that state, then they realize they've been struck with a sword. And when they're in that state of annihilation, actually they don't want to. They would love to stay in that state of annihilation with Allah. It's only duty dictates, you now have to go to this war, you now have to go there, now you have family. One of the rationale behind the Holy Messenger having more than 4 wives at a given time was this, because the Holy Messenger, because of his status, he would always be annihilated in Allah. He needed a lot of things to keep him on ground sometimes. Yes. This is a theory given. And this thing was only specific to the Holy Messenger, but it wasn't as if he had young wives. They were, most of the wives were aged and senior. So it shows it was something else, the wisdoms behind it. And there are other wisdoms behind it too. Sometimes they have access to the Malakuti realm. That can change. But when they have access to Lawh Mahfuz and beyond, and with Allah's permission, if they get to know, and they're in unity with it, they're in unity with those dimensions, but they're oblivious to it, and they only connect to it to know if it's on a par with Allah's Mashiya, Allah's will. They are manifestations of Allah's Mukhtarness. And when they get to know that, knowledge of a certain levels and higher, that is inevitable. That's going to happen no matter what. Karbala and Imam Hussein, this was the story. He was told, and this can't change. It couldn't change. Badr was impossible in this regard. With Amirul Mu'mineen and him being struck, can't change. Hujr ibn Adi got to know that they wanted to assassinate the Imam. Imam was leaving to go to the mosque, and he knew Hujr is coming. He changed his normal route. Hujr didn't find him because he said, look, this is going to happen and I'm doing my duty now. It's now Salat time. This is inevitable. Some people have access to that knowledge. When they have access to that knowledge, it doesn't distance them from executing their duty, what they have to do. But when his daughter was saying, no, don't go to the mosque this time, don't go this morning to the mosque for Fajr, he said, look, you can't change destiny. This can't change anymore. And they do what they do. Now someone may say, what about Laylatul Mabit? When Amirul Mu'mineen went in the place of the Holy Messenger, because they knew they wanted to assassinate the Holy Messenger, he went in his place. If Amirul Mu'mineen knew that he wasn't going to be killed, so what kind of sacrifice was this? Actually no. How do you know Amirul Mu'mineen knew what the end result was? He didn't get access to Lawh Mahfuz. He doesn't act with his ego and say, will I die or not? So he takes it as granted. I will sacrifice my life. And he lived in hope and fear. It may happen, it may not happen, but I'm going to sacrifice my life for the Holy Messenger. But if Allah had told him, get to know what is the knowledge, he can gain access to it, he will know. But he wouldn't do that from his own ego. They only know when it's on a par with Allah's will. This is the key. But at the same time that he's living in fear and hope, and he's sacrificing his life, and he doesn't know, but he's in unity with Lawh Mahfuz, but he's oblivious to it. Only when it's on a par with Allah's will, he'll get to know. So every incident we have to analyze differently. Now, one thing is that on Mondays and Thursdays, our a'mal are given to the 12th Imam. But those a'mal, they're the Imam. They are Imam Mubin. They have all those a'mal. They're in unity with that dimension, but they are oblivious to it. But on certain times of the week, there is an attentiveness they have in relation to our a'mal, and we have to kind of try and have some embarrassment before them on Monday and Thursday, especially on all days, but especially here. It's like passing an exam or doing an exam. Although the seeing of a'mal, inshallah, we'll speak on a different occasion, because I want to go through certain hadith in that regard. Okay, so with your permission, I'll end there, and we'll go through a bit of dhikr musibat, and then we'll finish, inshallah. On the night of the 14th of the holy month of Ramadan, which is one day before Imam Hassan's birthday, Imam Ali, Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, asked Imam Hassan, "O Hassan, how many days have gone by in this holy month?" Hassan alayhi salam replied, 13 days. Amirul Mu'minin then asked Hussein, "How many days left, son?" Imam Hussein replied, 17 days. Then Imam Ali alayhi salam grasped his beard and said, "Wallahi la yakhdibuha bidamaha idhan ba'atha ashqaha." Verily by Allah, when the most wretched of the ummah rises up, my beard will be colored with its blood. After the Nahrawan war, the Kharijites had decided in their assemblies that Ali, Muawiyah and Amr ibn As, who was a commander to Muawiyah, they must be assassinated. And it was decided that Ibn Muljam would assassinate Amirul Mu'mineen, Hajjaj ibn Abdullah would assassinate Muawiyah, and Amr ibn Bakr would assassinate Amr ibn As. Hajjaj didn't succeed to kill Muawiyah, only struck his thigh with his sword, and Muawiyah recovered. Ibn Bakr also failed, because the Attorney General of Egypt went to the mosque that day as Amr ibn As's representative. So they then decided that let's change the dates, and on the 19th we'll go ahead and continue with our plans. In relation to Ibn Muljam, he had arrived in Kufa. He first paid a visit to one of the Kharijite comrades. His eyes fell on this comrade's daughter, Quttam, and he was attracted to her. Ibn Muljam offered to take her hand in marriage. Quttam's father and brother were killed in the Nahrawan war, so she had this sense of revenge against Amirul Mu'mineen. She accepted Ibn Muljam's offer of marriage with the following conditions: 3,000 silver dirhams, a male and a female slave, and fourth, to assassinate Amirul Mu'mineen. Ibn Muljam, on hearing the fourth prerequisite of Quttam, disclosed the reason for his coming in the first place. They were wholly compatible with one another. Since Quttam's father was the head of a tribe, Quttam had contacts and was able to accumulate some people to assist Ibn Muljam in this cause. And Ibn Muljam had asked Shabib ibn Najra to accompany him in this assassination. On the night of the 19th, Quttam had started her i'tikaf in the mosque of Kufa from the night of the 14th and 15th. So from the night of the 14th and 15th, she was at the mosque and she started her i'tikaf. On the 19th, the night of the 19th, she would meet up with the allies of Ibn Muljam one by one, arousing them, brainwashing them, clothing them, enhancing their focus and motivation. Amir al-Mu'mineen was at Kulthum's house. Kulthum, the daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen, said, I had offered Amir al-Mu'mineen 2 pieces of barley bread. قدمت إليه عند إفطاره تبغا. I offered him at the time of iftar with a tray of food. فيه قرصان من خبز الشعير. And there were 2 pieces of barley bread which I placed on the tray. وقسعة فيها لبن وملح. And I brought some milk and some salt, a container of milk and like a container of salt. فَلَمَّا نَذَرَ إِلَيْهِ. When Amir al-Mu'mineen saw the tray, وَتَأَمَّلَهُ, and paused for a while, حَرَّكَ رَأْسَهُ, he moved his head, وَبَكَى بَكَاءً شَدِيدًا آرِيًا. Then he started crying very severely and loudly and said, قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّةُ, O my daughter, أَتَقْدَمِينِ إِلَىٰ أَبِيكِ إِدَامَيْنِ أَتُرِيدِينَ أَن يَطُولَ وُقُوفِي غَدًا بَيْنَ يَدَيِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. He said, O daughter, are you giving me 2 containers of food? Do you want my journey tomorrow in Qiyamah to be delayed between Allah's hand, before Allah, when I am there? By giving 2 containers, you want to postpone my journeying to Allah when I meet Him tomorrow. Ya bunayyato ma min rajulin taba mat'amuhu wa mashrabuhu wa malbisuhu illa tala wuqufuhu bayna yaday Allah yawm al-qiyamah. Whoever has affinity towards their food, their drink, their clothing, their stagnation will be prolonged in the hereafter before Allah. Ya bunayyatu, O my dear daughter, inna dunya fi halalaha hisabun. In this dunya, the halals that we do are to be accounted for. Wa fi haramiha iqabun. And the haram that we do will have punishment. Ya bunayyatu wallahi la akilu shay'an hatta tarfa'ina ahada idamain. I swear by Allah, I'm not going to eat anything until you take one of the 2 containers. And she took away the milk container, leaving only salt. After iftar, he completed his salat and was occupied with ibadat. And now and again he would exit the house, view the skies. He would lament and weep before his Lord. Allahumma barik li fil maut. Oh Allah, assign a blessed death for me. So it's evident now, he knows now it's inevitable. He would constantly utter, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. Uttering salawat, uttering the formulae of forgiveness. He stayed up all night, keeping vigil. He executed the night prayer at Kulthum's house. Kulthum asked, why all this staying up? Why all the lamentations? What is it for? Imam Ali declared, I shall be martyred during the morning salat. Kulthum said, "Oh father, please ask the son of Hani, the sister of Amir al-Mu'minin, to go and lead the salat this morning." Amir al-Mu'minin said, "One can't flee from divine destiny, daughter," and prepared himself to make his way to the mosque. The adhan was being recited. Amir al-Mu'minin started his journey. On entering the house's courtyard, the ducks had all surrounded Amir al-Mu'minin, opening their feathers, their wings with agitation. Kulthum came to scatter the ducks away so that Amir al-Mu'minin may proceed. Then Amir al-Mu'minin exclaimed, "Du'uhunna فَإِنَّهُنَّ سَوَائِحٌ تَتْبَعُهَا نَوَائِحٌ." Let them be, for verily their cries will be followed by the lamentations of mourners. On exiting the house's gate, the hook of the gate's lock got hooked onto Ali's clothing. His waist scarf opened up. He tightened the scarf around his waist and read and uttered this to himself: "Ushdud hayazika lil maut, fa innal mauta laqika." ولا تجزع من الموت إذا حل بناديك ولا تغتر بالدهر وإن كان يوافيك كما أضحكك الدهر كذاك الدهر يبكيك. Fasten that which is protecting you, meaning the scarf and the belt and the buttons, and be prepared for death, for verily death is but to encounter you. Don't complain of death when it comes and calls upon you. Don't be arrogant with respect to life, albeit in complete accordance with you, for this life leads you to cry in the same way it brings you to laughter. On hearing these words, Kulthum, who was behind his father, started crying. He said, "Oh Allah, help me. Oh father." Ali alayhi salam enters the mosque and the lights were out. He lit some candles and recited his Fajr Nafilah. He then recited the adhan. He entered the courtyard and said, "As-salat, as-salat," loudly. Ibn Muljam, although awake, made it seem as if he was sleeping in the courtyard. He covered his sword up, stomach to the ground. Amir al-Mu'minin approached him and said, "Don't sleep like this. It's shaitan's way. Either sleep on your right hand side like the believers, or on your left, or on your back like the prophets." Amir al-Mu'minin then told him, "You bear an intention that would lead the heavens to be cleft asunder and the mountains destroyed. I know what you're covering up." On saying this, he made his way back to the mosque towards the mihrab and started his salat. Ibn Muljam paid no heed to these divine words. He sat behind the nearest column to the mihrab. Shabib and Wardan, one of Quttam's men, positioned themselves in different corners of the mosque. And after coming up from the sajda position of the first unit of the Fajr prayer, Shabib made his move, and on his attempt to kill Ali, his sword got stuck to the wall of the mihrab. On seeing this, Ibn Muljam attacked and managed to slow Ali on his head. Amir al-Mu'minin then exclaimed, "Bismillahi wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah fuztu wa rabbil Kaaba." Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala